I want to say a few words about some of the Herculean efforts that Mr. Hernandez has put into making this program happen. Now, I've known Rob for almost 20 years, both active duty and working here in the county, and I don't think we could have hired a better person to put this program together. It was difficult, it's complicated, and the first year that Rob worked with us, or the first 6 or 7 months, Rob completed his certification in less than 1/3 of the time. So he went out on his own and got the certification so that he could create this program appropriately. So your program is probably the best in this area, and it will continue to grow, and you'll see more of these things happening within the county. So I just want to say I appreciate everything that Mr. Hernandez has put into this, and I think you'll see by his briefing how much work he's actually put in such a short time. So, Mr. Hernandez.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm Rob Hernandez, the Americans with Disability Act Title II coordinator, and I'd like to say good morning to the chair and commissioners. So what I have here is I'm going to present to you what's been done since I took this position and what we, the county, have done in terms of progress. So I was appointed as the ADA coordinator. I'll be talking about that. I'll provide a notice of ADA requirements. I'll talk about establishing grievance procedures, development of and conduct of self-evaluation, develop a transition plan, grievances, recruitment orientation, and training with members of the disabled community, and references. So 15 September, I was appointed as the ADA coordinator as a first time for a full-time position. So I did receive my certification on 3 August, officially. And it took me about 6 months, but I got it done. I do know several ADA coordinators within the community that have been coordinators for years and still don't have the certification. So the first thing I did was to establish the grievance procedures and identified all county public entities. I went throughout the county and made a list of what was serving the public. And then I posted notices of the ADA requirements and grievances at all 30 locations, which is mandatory per the ADA. And the purpose of this is if there's a person with a disability and they go to this facility, they see this notice of or grievance procedures, and they're able to voice their concern if they have any, and they know where to go. So the second thing I did was I started developing the self-evaluation program. And that took a lot because basically it entailed developing a database with the help of the engineers, which was convenient because they were downstairs. So, and it's a pretty pricey database, so we're going to put in for one a more professional database in the future through a grant process. But in the meantime, I knew that we needed to move forward, so I created one using Access, and it's working great. And the purpose of it is to track all findings throughout the process from beginning to resolution. The second thing was to actually go out and perform these and conduct these evaluations. So 21 self-evaluations of county facilities and areas have already been conducted with approximately 748 findings throughout the county. And this is just the beginning. But don't let the 748 scare you, because a lot of those have already been in the process of being closed. It's not just something that sits there. I try to make sure that all the responsible people that need to know are working on it, and we're resolving as we go. So approximately 59 evaluations of facility and recreational areas are still scheduled. I'm scheduled throughout 2017, and that just includes facilities. We're still talking about the right-of-way areas. The sidewalks, intersections, so you have ped ramps. For instance, the Stratmore Valley right now, we're replacing a lot of the sidewalks. Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Let me back up there. So this is the checklist that national network, ADA National Network provides through the ADA for us. It's pretty all-inclusive. When I say we, myself and usually Bill Dieter, many people know Bill Dieter, so I like to mention his name. He goes out with me, and he's got the mind of an engineer, so we're able to look at issues, and he's automatically trying to resolve things in his mind through the architectural process. So he doesn't just sit around. He gets back and starts working on it as well. So reasonable accommodations and policies and procedures, that's another thing that I'm working on right now, and that's with all the departments. One of the things that the ADA requires is that we ensure that all our policies and procedures meet reasonable accommodation. So I'm doing a review process from top to bottom with each department as I go. This is just to give you some examples. When I was out doing self-evaluations, there's some photos there. So this area here is, you see the civil clear window, stall clearance, and these other areas. Judicial, Centennial Hall here. And it doesn't just include findings in the physical sense, it also includes programs. So when you see this last corner, EPC auditorium, there's an ear there. That is referring to a looping system. So one of the things I look for when I go out and do self-evaluations, not only is there is a counter meet the requirements, or does the hallway meet the requirements, or elevator, but I'm looking for programs. For instance, if you have a hearing aid or you're hard of hearing, is there, and you're attending a venue, are you able to use that hearing aid properly? In other words, when you walk in, does it loop with the system? It's an inductive system where it connects to your hearing aid, and you're able to participate with everyone. So that's one thing I'm working on right now, and we're going to do that here at the auditorium. And we're also getting some looping systems that are portable for emergencies and other areas, and I'll talk about that a little bit.
So is there some sort of technology that's available out there that, is like iPad or something like that, that can be spoken into quickly to, have large text to be able to say something into it, pass it to someone so they can read it if they are unable to hear as quickly, as you, to be able to communicate with them if you're, in a meeting in an office or something like that?
Well, that's one thing I'm working on as well.
Okay.
And there is a system called UB, and I think it's very costly, so I'm looking for alternatives. And you hit it on the nose, iPad. I think that there's a technology out there. I've been working with the Colorado School of the Deaf and Blind, and there are programs available to us where it would be very inexpensive. And the goal would be to put it into the several work centers so that in an instance where you would meet with someone, we'd be able to have that process available.
If we're out with a meeting and meeting with somebody who's hearing impaired, how we just quickly, push the button, it puts it on text in the iPad, makes it large enough to actually read instead of teeny tiny, pass it to the person, let them read it, and then, do their voice to also be able to communicate back, or just to be able to answer it right then and there. I would like for you to check into that.
Oh, yeah, I am, yeah.
Because it'd be more cost effective, obviously.
Yes. Are there any questions on the photos? We'll go to the next one. So there's more examples there of some of the areas. Something simple as a bulletin board, for instance. If you're blind and you're walking down the hall and it protrudes beyond 4 inches, it's very probable that you can walk into it. So we've already corrected that, where it extends, it skirts down, so that if a person is walking and is blind, the cane is going to hit the bottom part, and they know that there is an object there that they'll go around. Counters, that's another example. If you're in a wheelchair and you need customer service just like anyone else, it's really difficult when you pull up to a counter like that and you can't, you're looking up, you don't have that eye-to-eye vision, that direct contact. Something as simple as a bathroom stall, where if you have a disability with your hand and you're in a wheelchair, you have a tough time just trying to open the stall door to something as simple as it self-closing. We take things for granted like this, but people in the community that are disabled, this tends to be a difficult task sometimes. So it's something that we're really working hard to make sure that it's going to be available to them.
I've noticed when I've sort of been in different public buildings in different communities, they have braille signs that explain what's on the wall. So for instance, if you had the Board of County Commissioners or county administrator, there would be a sign below that was in braille. Are you looking at that as well, Robert, as one of the
Definitely.
things that we could add on later for those that are blind or vision impaired?
The good news is a good majority of our buildings already have those. Visual impairment or blind, they're walking down the hall and they're feeling, and then they know the distance from the ground up. They have a general sense, and they feel the sign. So if it's too high, it's going to lose them. So we're making sure that that's taken care of. So here, when I spoke about the public right-of-way, the good thing about El Paso County, we haven't just been sitting by and doing nothing. So this is a 10-year span, and it shows just how much money and linear feet and ped ramps have been installed and replaced. As you can see, in those 10 years, 178,000 linear feet, 849 ped ramps at a cost of almost $3 million. That's almost a third of the entire almost $10 million budget within those 10 years. And I think that says a lot about our folks at the county, that they're being cognizant of what's going on and they're trying to do the right thing. So this, I don't expect you to read. So I did bring some samples of what the transition plan looks like. So earlier I mentioned that there's a self-evaluation process. When I do the self-evaluation and I do the report and it goes out to the POC, a person of contact, right? Then what happens here is it goes into this transition plan. And the purpose of it is to track it from the beginning to the end. The end means that it's been resolved. So as you can see, if you look at the ADA priorities, which is the orange column, you see some numbers there, and the figures aren't too high, which is nice. But then you get into the yellow column, and they're up a little bit, but the yellow means that this is going to work for now. However, we have more work to do. So in this case, this is an interim measure, meaning that we've placed, so in this situation, this is the judicial building, by the way. The south tower, basement, east, all the way through, well, every floor. There's the basement and 5 floors. None of the drinking fountains actually meet the ADA requirement. They're old fountains from 1970. They're brass, they're beautiful, but they just don't meet the requirement. So if you're in a wheelchair, you're just not really going to be able to get to it. So what we've done is we've installed paper cup dispensers as a temporary interim measure at each location, well, each floor, I should say. The permanent fix is to budget to actually replace the fountains eventually with the proper ADA fountain. The red column, that means that I'm not happy with what I'm seeing, so I'm addressing those areas to try to expedite it a little bit more. That's just something for me and a timeline. And as you can see, it goes all the way from the left column to where I sign a number, a work order, the area, the facility name, the inspection date, and so on, the description and the barrier. So the purpose of this is not only for us to, as the county, to track and resolve the issue, it's also in the case that, let's say, we are audited and the Department of Justice decides that they're going to pay us a visit. Well, we're meeting our mandatory requirements. They're seeing that we're not just learning the word ADA, but we're actually embracing it and we're practicing it in our daily lives, and we're trying to do the best that we can to ensure equality for those with disabilities in the community. Are there any questions?
It looks like you need a team from facilities just to work with you all the time.
Where I work at, for Jim Reed, I have access to everything I need. It's great because that's not normal, by the way. This position normally falls under an HR position, and there's a lot of red tape, bureaucracy, you know, but the time you get to the engineers 3 months later and this and that. Well, when I need something, I walk downstairs, and I'm talking to the engineers. When I need something from facilities, I call Dave Schnabel, and we're counterparts. And every Monday, we have staff meetings. All public services department staff members are there, to include myself, and we're able to collaborate and discuss better ways or faster ways to take care of issues. I've been told by many members in the disabled community that are very influential that I'm probably the luckiest ADA coordinator there is. and I have to agree. You know, everything takes money, but as you can see, we're moving forward, and great people. So when I say I go out, it's not just me that's doing this. I'm merely an orchestrator, if you want to call it, but it's the people of the employees of El Paso County that are actually doing this. And I'm a very fortunate person.
Certainly looks like we're having the wonderful opportunity to go for the low-hanging fruit, fix the things that are, you know, easily fixed, low cost, that can be done right away, and then beginning to move up or continuing to move up the ladder on those. You know, I will say, after visiting many different countries internationally, we are so privileged here to be able to even address these issues. Many places that I've visited wouldn't even dream of. It's difficult for people who don't have disabilities to get around, much less those who do, who have the challenges. And so sometimes people take it for granted that, of course, we're going to, you know, just fix everything. It's just cost prohibitive to do so immediately. But we really, I would say, it is 100% better than most, you know, other countries that I've visited. If you go to India or Nepal or Thailand or, you know, Hong Kong or wherever it happens to be, we are so blessed here to even be thinking about these things and addressing these issues in a positive, proactive way that impacts people's lives greatly. So thanks for what you're doing.
Being a veteran, traveling the world myself, you're exactly right. We're very fortunate to be in the U.S. and be able to do the things we do. Any more questions on this slide? So one of the things I do also is handle grievances. So in the year of 2015, I received 13 grievances and did find resolution, which is what the goal is. Persons with service animals, issues with the right-of-way, you know, people calling in, I'd go out to the neighborhood and look at the area, talking to people that were visually impaired.
Is that a horse?
That is a horse. That is a horse. I thought I'd throw that in there just to see if I'd get something here. But yes, yes. But that horse is actually a service animal. Okay, the miniature horse and the dog are the two recognized service animals by the ADA. And so if you see a service horse like that in a restaurant, it's allowable. So the other area is interpreter, sign language services, and we do provide that. We have a contract that DHS has. They established it first through our contracting office, and all of county members are able to get onto that contract in the case that there's an interpreter needed. We'd like to ask that we have at least 48 hours notice so that we can prepare for that. But it works well, and we've had a couple instances where I did get a call or two, and I was able to point them in the right direction, and it worked out well. Mobility, that's a big thing there. People in wheelchairs or canes or whatever the mobility might be. Accessible parking, employment. So I get, as you can see, there's a wide array of areas within the ADA that I address.
Robert, I just wanted to thank you too you can't see it real well, I guess we can't, but the new signs that you put up at the Citizen Service Center that are more, I think, just more conducive to understanding what they're for. And you can see on that one that's just off about the third one over there. I don't know if you have a close-up of that, but I just thought I'd mention that.
So, okay, recruitment, orientation, and training. What does that mean? That means that I'm getting out into the community and meeting with people from different areas that have disabilities or work with disabilities, and I'm collaborating with them. So as you can see here, the Independence Center, for instance, they're great. I work with them. I mean, I talk to those folks sometimes almost daily. But matter of fact, after I'm finished here, I'm going to go visit with them, and we're going to talk about some items. Video phones, they helped me get video phones for the county. And we put video phones at DMV, two at the Pikes Peak Workforce Center. We put one at Public Health. We're getting ready to put one in, hopefully this week, at Department of Human Services. And then the DMV over at Powers. And the purpose of the video phone, does anyone know what a video phone is? Okay, so if I go in and I need to use a public phone, because believe it or not, even though I have a mobile phone, not everyone does. And sometimes you need to make that phone call. And I have, but I was fortunate enough to have the mobile phone. But if you offer this service to the public, what if I'm deaf? Then what do I do? You know, it's not one of those things, well, sorry. Well, no, there's video phones, and that's what we've installed. So if I'm deaf, I'm able, I recognize, I see the signage, I go to the video phone, I log on, and the FCC comes on with an interpreter doing sign language, and I sign to the interpreter calling Commissioner Lathan, right? And Commissioner, and then you hear verbal on your end, and you're able to verbal back to the interpreter. The interpreter then signs back to me. It's a really neat thing to see. And we did have a little grand opening there at the Pikes Peak Workforce Center when we first did the first install. The Gazette showed up for that, and it was really neat. We had a lot of folks show up for the training. That's what it was, and they're very happy to see, when I say they, a lot of folks in the disability community are very happy to see that these are being installed. We also have, and I need to mention this, our jail has 3, okay? And I was just talking to them Thursday, and we're getting ready to get 2 more. So we're gonna have 5 at the jail alone. So we have, I'm not gonna mention the wards, but we have some in the wards, and then we have one at intake. So we're doing great things. Portable loop system. We're getting a portable loop system, possibly 2, through the Independence Center provided by the Daniels Fund Foundation. And what does that do? Well, it's a portable system for a small conference room, let's say for 100 chairs, let's say. And specifically it's going to be used for the emergency, Office of Emergency Management, so that if we have to set up in a situation and the need arises, we have that. The other thing that they're going to provide to us, the Independence Center through the Daniels Fund, is an emergency preparedness kit. And we're going to meet tomorrow in a meeting, which is why I'm going there today. And they're going to do a presentation. They want to do a presentation to you, the board, to myself, and the OEM to give us these 2 items. And they're very costly. They're very costly. So I think it's very nice that they're participating like this, and they're trying to be part of our solution. Also, the Hearing Loss Association of America, they're another group that I deal with, and they've helped me tremendously in doing research. The Colorado Department of Transportation Civil Rights Business Resource, I'm working with them. I work with them several times a month. Colorado Advisory Council for the persons with a disability, that's actually the Governor's Council for those with disabilities. And I'm an associate member. They kind of surprised me. So I attend those on a once a month basis, sometimes more, but usually once a month, every second Tuesday of the month. And I represent El Paso County. And the nice thing about that is we're trying to increase the participation there at this meeting. to represent the South, okay? Because there's plenty of people representing Denver in those areas, but we need more representation. And I do have some folks from Rocky Mountain ADA Center and Independence Center that are actually going with me, and we go together to this meeting and represent El Paso County. So we're growing in numbers. The other thing is Accessible Communities Today, if you've ever heard of them. He's actually one of the members, the chair, that actually goes with me to this meeting. And they've been very instrumental in helping me. I've actually taken John Monteith, for instance, to the county fairgrounds when we were doing the platforms for the wheelchairs. And he helped me by helping me with the self-evaluation. And looking at things, being in a wheelchair, sometimes you don't see things that he might see. And he pointed out things, well, what about this, what about this? And it was one of those things, wow, never thought about that. Noted. And we're looking at making sure that that's going to be implemented. The resource exchange, cognitive advisory work, they're also known as TREE. So as you can see, over there on the top left, that was the grand opening. That's Matthew there, and he's deaf, and he's from the Independence Center. So they were really happy that I involved them. And as you can, these are just things that we've accomplished in this last year, or getting ready to accomplish. The looping system, the proclamation that the Board of Commissioners made, the platforms. We're recognized in June. There's Commissioner Lathan, myself, and Jim Reed. We were being recognized by the Independence Center during the 25th anniversary of the ADA. On the left there, you see a kit, a wheelchair. It's something similar to what they're going to give us. Bottom corner, you see that's John Monteith, myself, and they invited me to a race car event. So participation with the community is very important. And I've really gotten, in a funny way, attached to these folks. And we're working together. So the Think of Me, Keep It Free, that's part of the campaign that you were talking about, Commissioner Clark. So that's through the governor's campaign. They provided the signs, and then we placed them throughout the county. And we're going to replace more. And the city's also doing it as well now. They saw that we were doing it, so they thought they'd do it as well, which is good, which is great. And that concludes my briefing.
Okay,
All right.
very, very nice, thank you.
Thank you.
The signs that Rob is, that the state campaign, the signs that say "Think of Me," we were the first county to jump on that and make that happen. And I think that's a huge hurdle for us. So thank you.
El Paso County's come a long way since several of us had a meeting at the Independence Center. I don't even remember when, but it sounds about right. Much has been accomplished in that time frame, so thanks.
Commissioner Clark?
Just as a quick note too, I know, a lot of us are dealing with not only our own aging, but our aging parents, and it's really important. You don't realize how difficult it is to get folks who aren't as ambulatory as they once were to and from places. And I know when we started here at the county, one of the elevators was broken, the parking garage broken for quite some time, and now that's been replaced and the signage has increased. And I just want to say thank you. I know we have a new pedestrian ramp out in the back of Centennial Hall, which helps accessibility from the parking garage. And so I think we've made a lot of strides, and your work, Rob, has really helped us to do an overall assessment. So thanks very much for the presentation. I think it shows, as Jim Reed mentioned, that we are at the forefront of in a number of ways, and that signage maybe makes people think that not to park in those handicapped spots if they don't need them.